Good morning, Phil. How's it
How's it
going?
going? Hey, good. Thanks. Good afternoon, you should be saying, of course,
Oh,
because
yes.
in the real world, it is the afternoon. The
Yeah.
sun's starting to go down a little bit here.
Oh, no, it's still nice and early over here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How's your new year? Good?
It was amazing. My wife worked, so I spent it at home with my kids. I'm adulting it up.
No, nice, like a
Hmm.
proper grown up.
Oh, yeah.
Meanwhile, I'm kind of the opposite of that. No kids here, just a couple of cats. So mostly, and a wife. I don't live
Mhm.
alone just with cats. I'm not an old crazy man. But
Yeah.
that would be fine. But no adulting here. I've
Yeah.
been a child over the Christmas break. Uh,
Oh, yeah.
so
Mhm.
but there's no escape from it. It's back to it now.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
excellent. So this is Ask Netlify, a little video series that Phil and I do here where we give everyone an opportunity, a platform to ask any questions that they have about Netlify, Jamstack, and just generally anything fun and interesting.
And oh, careful,
Yeah.
careful now.
Careful, what people say.
I'm
Yes,
terrified now.
yes. Well, we do triage the questions that come in, so.
Right. Right. Yeah. And people have been. I'm delighted actually. Since recording the previous one of these, thankfully we've got more questions. Otherwise, we'd have been just having to make them up and pass them off as our own.
Yeah.
So it's great that people have been going to ask.netlify.com
Mhm.
and opening Git issues. That's all these questions are. They're just
Yes.
they Git issues so that we can chatter on them and comment on them. Some of them just get closed right away because we can give someone a really direct answer. It's almost like it's a little support question. And
Mhm.
this isn't replacing support. Gerald's part of the support team, and we don't want to put them out of work
Oh,
with.
yeah.
I don't think we'd quite do that with an occasional video series. Is that
Yeah.
fair?
Mhm. But yeah, we want to do this probably every couple of weeks. And so we just want these questions to keep coming so that we can keep giving you guys some awesome info and some context and to share a little bit more about what Netlify is all about.
Yeah. And the other thing that's nice since the last episode as well is that, I noted last time that, Gerald, your wardrobe was largely funded by friends of Netlify,
Yes.
people in the Jamstack community.
Mhm.
That's continuing this time.
Yeah.
I noticed with your Take Shape
Mhm.
t-shirt. I now have one of those myself, but luckily I didn't wear it today. I'm wearing something from the nice Mr. West Boss sent me this.
There
Uh,
you go.
Thank you, Wes.
Yeah.
Very much appreciated.
Mhm.
So now I'm not the only one who's. You're not the only one who's getting
Yeah,
getting
the
getting
swag.
something out of this.
Mhm. Yeah, this is awesome, and Take Shape it's a great CMS. The guys who started it, the founders, they're really big into the Jamstack community. They actually did a talk at the last Jamstack meetup, and
Right.
they were over at Jamstack Conf in San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was good talking to them. I heard them on a podcast recently called Static Bits. You
Yes.
can
Yeah.
hear from
Mhm.
them on there as well. So that's worth checking out.
Yeah, and you were on the previous episode of Static Bits.
I was
Yeah.
waffling for a really long time. Poor Josh, who was asking me questions. In the end, he didn't know how to get rid of me, and so I'm sorry if that happens again today. I know you take a stronger grip, though, don't you? You'll shut me up.
I'll try, but I think everyone loves listening to you. So
Let's see how far we can push them.
yes. All right. So
Should we get into it? Should we just go
yeah.
to the questions?
Yeah, let's see. What's our first question?
Okay. So the first question we have is actually about Google Analytics. So the first one was submitted by Christian. So thanks, Christian, for this. And his question was about how to filter Google Analytics. Filter Netlify access on Google Analytics. So he's saying after every rebuild, I see a Netlify access in my Google Analytics. Can you suggest a filter to remove access of the infrastructure? So why would that be? Why are we nosing around in someone's site after every time a deploy happens? Do you think what's going on there?
Well, if they're using an SSG like Gatsby, Hugo, or React Static or something like that, then all the JavaScript is being run during their build, unless it's specifically being triggered by some kind of user interaction. And one other thing is we do take screenshots at the end of your build, which shows up on your site. And
Okay.
So that's another way it'll run. So generally, what I recommend and what most people do, there's actually a few options. One of them is add filters in your Google Analytics settings. You can do that just for 127.0.0.1 and localhost. Another option is to use JavaScript and just wrap the analytics snippet inside of a conditional that just checks the host name and window.location. That's probably a good way to do it, because then you want to, that way if you have test branches that you look at and you test and staging branches, they're not going to trigger analytics if you don't want them included.
Yeah.
And the third and easiest option is to just put it in, use snippet injection, because Netlify supports this feature. So after your build is run, we'll do it afterwards.
Oh, I see. So
the snippet.
Got you. So so what you're saying is that rather than having the code added as part of your build, you know, it's like an include, or you know, it's actually, you know, hard coded in there. Rather than do that, if you're using Netlify snippet injection, that will be squirted into your site long after any of the other kind of spidering and kind of previews and other things. I see. Okay, that's kind of cool.
So probably the best combination is doing the conditional in snippet injection. That's the simplest. So that way you still have the conditional, so you don't have to worry about staging branches or feature branches polluting your analytics data.
Right. Got you. That's kind of interesting, because that raises another thing that I've looked at a couple of times, and that is wanting to be able to actually highlight which branch is being served. Because we're meandering away from the original question, but I think this is probably still useful. So one of the things that you know, we can do on Netlify, of course, is the A/B testing.
Yes.
Testing. And the way that works is that we're serving different versions on different branches, but that's happening invisibly, right? So the routing's being done on the CDN, so the URL looks the same, but behind the scenes we can route traffic to different branches. And you really want the branch that you're serving to be able to be, you want that to be measurable, right? So you want that to go into your Google Analytics. And the way that I've done that in the past is, again, by using the script injection, as the snippet injection rather, that you're talking about. And since we've got access to environment variables there, we can actually say, oh, this is the branch that you're viewing, so we can pass the branch name into the analytics. So that's kind of it's different to what you're talking about, but it's using the same mechanic. So sometimes it's nice to actually show up the branch, but it's interesting to hear that if you use snippet injection, then those kind of initial hits that are happening internally as part of the build, as either like the pre-rendering or the generation of that thumbnail, that won't show up in your analytics, right?
Yeah,
okay,
and
cool.
that's actually a really good point. A lot of people do wonder when using A/B testing or split testing, how exactly to know which branch is being hit. And we do have those environment variables. I don't know how clear it is on our website, but you can access those variables inside your snippet injection and during the build itself.
Right. Yeah. I think I think it is mentioned in our docs. I think it's just it takes a tiny bit of poking around to discover exactly what the environment variables are that you can find. I made a tiny video a long time ago about some of this, so maybe we can link that up in the the notes afterwards. Just a tiny little tease of that. Cool. Okay, I'm going to mark that. Should we mark that one as answered? Hope that answers your question, Christian. Good luck with tweaking that. Okay, should we move along?
Yeah. So this question actually comes from Tom on GitHub. They're TMHN. The question is there a way to have a test environment that I can deploy to, then having validated that, I can then progress the app onto live?
Yes, there is, and absolutely, what a common pain point that is as well for people who are providing their own infrastructure and building this stuff out. Because of course, you know, having an environment which is your testing environment, have it be exactly the same as production is critical. And yes, so thankfully, Tom, there is a way you can do that on Netlify. And in fact, since we built on, you know, a lot of our conventions are built on top of like the conventions of Git. We stick with that approach. So what we actually do is we will create environments for every branch that you have in your repo. Now you need to turn that on. So I think what I might do, I might share my screen for a second so I can show you this. Let's see if I can do this without screwing it up. There we go. So that should now be. Are you seeing my own site there? Okay, cool. So this isn't the thing of interest, but here's the Netlify admin for my own site. And I'm in if I go to the deploy settings here. Oops, no, sorry, I need to go to the view. Oh no, I was in the right place. Deploy settings. Let's have a little look. So if we come down to, where are we? Deploy contexts. Here you can see what's the production branch. So I'm treating master as the production branch. And there's also this thing here that says branch deploys. Deploy all branches pushed to the repository. Now, by default, yours won't be that. You'll just be deploying master. But if you edit the settings here, you can choose which branches you deploy as well. And you can go through and select individual branches in here. But I just choose to deploy all branches. And what happens is whenever you push another branch to your repository, if you're using the continuous integration, Netlify will do a deploy for that branch. You'll see it in your deploys over here. And what actually happens is you'll get a subdomain named with that branch for whatever you create. So in that way, you end up with an environment for every one of your branches. And now the nice thing is that these branches or these environments, they're all identical because they're all actually living out on our ADN. They're all exactly the same. They're as production. The only things that's different really about them is the URL. So in that way, you can work in a branching model. So you can push something to a staging environment that you might have called staging as a staging branch, have your stakeholders look at that, do some testing against that, whatever you need to do. And then when you're happy, the way you promote that to live is that you merge that branch into master, the deploy kicks off, and you've deployed to master. So yes, you do end up with this ability to have these different environments where you can host different things. You can do things like feature branches, so you test individual branches as well, individual features. And this is all built on like the standard Git branching model, and you get an environment per branch in that way. So I think that'll be what you need.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing that they can use are the deploy previews that are created anytime you open a PR.
Right.
Which is really nice because then that's identical to what your new master will be.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those blow my mind a little bit because those build previews, they give you a view of what the site will be if you choose to merge the code in.
Yes.
You haven't merged the code in.
Yeah, and we still do all of our checks, like our GitHub checks and stuff like that. We'll do it on your deploy preview, so you'll see if there's anything that you should fix that that our system caught.
That's really nice. Yeah, and another thing that I really like about that is as part of the notifications that we can have after builds, you can actually poke a notification that build is ready right into the PR on GitHub. So when people are making pull requests, the build runs, and then right there in the conversation about this feature that someone's suggesting, you get a link that takes you through to preview it. So it really makes it really very visible and just so accessible for people to be able to try these things out. I love that little detail.
Oh yeah, definitely. I've almost taken it for granted. Anytime I have to work with anything that's not a Netlify, I'm like, oh, this is so much more work.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, it's funny how quickly you get used to these kind of things and kind of start demanding them. Yeah. It doesn't feel like a very long time ago that I was having to work with teams like offshore to provision a staging environment. Okay, that'll take 4 weeks. But I know that's often the way. It's interesting actually. In the question that Tom raises, he also added another little thing in here. He was asking, is there a way to generate a build status README badge that I can drop into the README on my GitHub project? That's kind of interesting. I like those badges that kind of tell you about the build statuses or dependencies and those kind of things. And we don't have anything like that, but
no,
it seems to me that's something we could get from the API, right?
Yes, that's something we'd love to do, but obviously we can't just do everything all at once. But yeah, you can get that from the API. You could also use GitHub's checks API now if you're using the app directly. So anyone can write a function or something that just pulls that information and creates their own badges. That would be an awesome project.
Interesting. Yeah, it would be interesting to see if anyone gets to that before we do, because that would be a cool thing to have actually. A little status right there in the README that's talking to the API. Curious. Okay. Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so hopefully that answers that question. We've waffled around other bits and pieces as well.
Yeah.
Are we ready to move on? Should we go on to the next
Yep.
question? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So the next one is from Parker, and Parker is. Oops, I've just gone away from his question. Here we go. Whoops. Smooth. There we go. So Parker's asking about identity. So his question is, what's the best way to update the user metadata in Netlify Identity as a response to the identity signup event? Now, he's talking about Netlify Identity. Sounds like he's doing various bits and pieces with identity, and he's layering in things like MongoDB and other bits and pieces behind the scenes. But his core question is, what's the best way to update the user metadata in the Netlify Identity as a response to identity sign-up events? Can you shed some light on that, Gerald, and kind of give a bit of background about what some of these phrases mean?
Yeah. So for those that don't know, it's there's typically two sections where you can add data in your JWT. Of course, you can essentially do whatever you want. It's a JSON object, but there's a user app metadata and there's the app metadata. User metadata is actually all of this is visible from the client. I just want to be clear about that. So if there's anything that's sensitive, you don't want to put it in either of these sections. You still want to keep that in your database, or you can encrypt it and store it inside the JWT.
Okay, but these two things you're talking about, these are part of the JWT kind of scheme, just by convention. That's just universal, right?
Yes, and we include them in our identity JWTs, and so their app metadata, users cannot update. You cannot change it from the client side at all. So anything that you don't want the user to be able to change, you keep out of there, because if they know the right JavaScript, they could change the user metadata.
Right.
Yes, but if there's something where it's just the user's, public user, the slug or something that they use on their website, where you don't care if they have the ability to change it, then you can change that from your client side JavaScript and keep that in the user metadata.
Right.
Now you can actually update both user metadata, app metadata, and user roles from inside of a function.
Okay.
So what's his name? I'm sorry about that. It is Parker. What Parker is using is an event triggered function called identity signup. And this is a function that if you deploy a function with that name and make no other changes, we will fire off that function when any user signs up on your identity instance. Mm-hmm. And if you return a 200 code and a JSON body, we will take that body and apply it to that user. So in there, you could return new app metadata, new user metadata, and also new roles. He didn't specifically mention roles, but I'm just pointing this out in case anyone is interested in adding roles.
Okay.
So here, I actually created a little example, and I'll share my screen. All right.
Cool.
So I made this this little site here, and I'm going to sign up a new user. Gerald +1. And I will show data that's added. Let's. Oh, whoops.
Whoops.
Okay, confirmation email was sent. Let me just pull up that link.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and now I'm logged in. The user is confirmed. Now, what you'll actually see here, this is the user data. I'm just logging it out. No, that's all.
Okay, so this example you're looking at, this screen, that's just logging out to the screen, the contents of the JWT. Is that right, or something different?
This is the current user from identity, which is the same contents that are passed into JWT, and I'll actually show you that. And if you could reload, so you could see the state is actually persisted. And you can see here under app metadata, my user info, and it's there. And under user metadata, custom data from function. This is pretty awesome. My user, this is not there by default. these roles, they're also not there by default.
Okay.
I actually added it using a function, and let me actually show. This is literally all there is to it.
So this is the function that lives in, this is a serverless function. This is
Correct.
the one that's automatically triggered when a user performs a sign up. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is all you need to do in order to pass all that information and assign it to every user on sign up. So what they're doing is anytime a user signs up, they're creating and adding some data to their MongoDB inside of this function. And then their Mongo API, their API that's backed by Mongo is returning an ID. And what he wants to do is save that in the app metadata. So you can, come here and do a fetch to your API, get that data back, and then assign that data to anything here in app metadata. And just save it as a variable or in user metadata. I showed here that you can do both and also update their role, because you can do everything in a single function. And then here we're just, converting it to JSON and replying back using the callback function. And it's fairly straightforward. It's not too crazy. And that's all you need to do when you use an event triggered function. So a lot of that magic comes from that function, because it's our proxy, and on our side where we pass information into this function that then when you return it, we know to assign it to that user.
Got you.
Yeah.
So would people always be using event-triggered functions for this kind of thing, or would they sometimes be able to call other functions that they've got specified elsewhere? Or
you can do all of this from other functions. It's easier inside of an event-triggered function, but actually, what we do is we pass user information we pass context into every function that includes a URL for updating your identity users, your identity API, and it also includes a short-lived JWT token. And you can use that to make admin requests to your identity instance, which means that you can do actions like list users, update, delete, all that stuff from any function.
Got you.
Yes, but using this, which is what Parker is doing, you can update the user. One other thing I just wanted to show is that if you do have information that's not sensitive, then you can actually come right here to your logged in user and say, hi, this is custom info. And that's literally it. And now let me log out and then log back in. And the custom info is there. Even though
so that's been passed back and forth with the JWT?
Yeah,
and
really this is the JWT here. So let me actually show. Whoops. Let me actually show. Did I stop sharing?
You did stop sharing. We're all looking at your confused face now.
Yeah, I was. Sorry, I'm getting better at this.
That's cool.
All right. So if I copy that JWT here, you can see that the custom app metadata from the function is there. It's encoded in JWT. So is the user data that was added by the function and the custom user data I just saved.
Right.
And the nice thing about encoding this data is that it's passed around, which means that if, like in Parker's case, you send it back to your API, that JWT, it will include all of this data in it.
Right. Okay. So that survives the transport back and forth.
Yes.
Cool. So I guess it's important to note that this is encoded, but it's not encrypted, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
That sounds like it does what Parker's needing.
Yeah.
What I can figure.
Yeah, and I put it in a public repo here. I'll throw the link in. So if anyone wants to see all of the code that I just showed, then it's there. One thing is when you look at my index file, there's a bunch of JS, but most of it is just with manipulating the DOM and adding and viewing.
Right, got you.
Yeah, it's all there in a repo. I'll put a link, and anyone can check it out and start developing their own stuff.
Sweet, nice. Okay, that's excellent. Yeah. And I noticed that along the way you're using the identity widget there as well.
Yes.
Right, and so so very generously we got a nice comment that wasn't a question. It was actually just a comment into the repo just after we opened it up, saying, just wanted to say that the identity widget is freaking awesome, which is nice. So that was from Yumin. So thank you for that, Yumin. But
yeah.
But that's what you were demoing there, right? So that widget is intended to just save you from having to go and build the UI that's associated with that kind of identity service. So yes, we've got the identity service for you to build things of your own on top of, but if you don't want to build all of that UI, that widget is there for you to be able to use, right? And is it as simple as a JavaScript drop in, or I'm probably overstating it, aren't I? No?
No, it is that simple, because when you enable identity, we actually provision it for your site, and then there's a URL there where your identity settings are available. It's not. And so when you load the widget, it actually looks for that URL and it loads the site. It loads the settings for your identity instance automatically. So it's essentially zero configuration on the widget side just to get started.
Okay, so fair enough. That is pretty awesome. I guess you probably, do you have the ability to like skin that and theme it yourself as well, or is that just going to? I guess there's probably limited things you could do with it, I guess, for theming it.
The widget, it's in an open source repo, which means that you can take it and do whatever you want. It's actually a little React app.
Right.
But what I would do if you wanted something custom is to build your own and just do it on top of GoTrueJS.
Right.
GoTrueJS is the library that the widget is actually built on top of. The Netlify Identity widget is essentially just the UI layer on top of that. The GoTrueJS is just a library that talks to identity and provides an API that you can use to be able to sign users in, verify them, and all that stuff.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And I think that's what people who've built things out, which look a little bit more custom, look a little bit more bespoke to them. That's what people are doing. So that's another link we should put in the notes for this.
Yeah.
For this. So they'll be down the page. I don't know. Yes. I've never done this before. They'll be here. I don't know. There's.
You just pointed that to me, which is funny. It's like, no, they'll be down there.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I'm not ready for Peter Jackson's call yet. I'm not.
Yeah. No, we'll throw that in there. And you could also do inviting and all that stuff inside of functions also.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. It's pretty powerful. Once you start pulling out that thread, that's pretty powerful. We could probably go much further into identity in another set of questions, I'm certain.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I think we should we keep rattling along? Yes. We've got a healthy list of questions. All right. What's this next one? Oh, Brotli support. So this one was for me, but I'm just gonna read the question as well, because this is one that I hear all the time. I'm sure you get the questions to support a lot, and a lot of people around on Twitter ask me about this, and when I'm at events, and so Alexander, he submitted this question, and it's purely, what about Brotli support? When are we going to get Brotli support? Can we have that? He's mentioned that he's transitioned from elsewhere to using Netlify, and is really happy, except for the one thing that he just really would like to be able to support Brotli compression on his images, and we do hear that a lot. And I believe the answer for that is we hear you. We are planning on this at some point, but we haven't got a date to release this yet, purely because this is a slightly bigger chunk than you might expect. It has a significant overhead on compute cycles around the ADN, our kind of smart CDN. And so while there are a few ways that we could kind of roll this out and let people do their own compression of assets beforehand and then set headers and things like that, all of which have been discussed, we really want to do this the right way and make sure that this doesn't impact for performance around the global CDN as a whole. So we're really being very cautious about how we roll this out. So I know that a few people might be a bit frustrated about this, that it's not here yet. And I wish I could give an ETA, but I don't think we have one yet, right?
No, we don't. But I can say that our ADN is a huge focus for us right now, in terms of adding extra functionality and a lot of awesome stuff that we can't announce yet. And Brotli is definitely one of the things we definitely want to throw in there as well.
Right. Yeah. As you said, there's a lot of focus on the ADN in the first quarter or so of next year.
This year now.
This year, oh my God.
Yeah.
There we go. There's my first example of me getting the date wrong. It won't be the last. But yeah, I think I'm keeping my fingers crossed that Brotli will be in there. But I don't know. But we certainly hear the voices. There are lots of people asking for that, yes. And it's kind of important to us too. But we just want to make sure we do that the right way.
Yes,
Yeah,
agreed. We don't want to add it and sacrifice stability in the process.
yeah,
And we
exactly.
we definitely want to do it in a way that makes sense for everyone. And we support a large number of free users, and we want to be able to continue to provide a lot of free services. And so we're working on it.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, so the next question then is about the Netlify CTL. The
Oh
question
yeah.
is, yeah, the question from Norbert is, why is the Go version of the Netlify CTL not updated?
Mhm.
Do you have any updates on that?
Yeah. So right now, it works and it will continue to work. We can't promise future updates. It's possible at some point it will be deprecated. To be honest, this is essentially because more people are favoring the Node version. That's a big reason why we're doing it. It's easier for people to integrate with that, to integrate our Node version. It's an open source project. We also want more people working on it. And we can't focus too much on multiple CLIs. And right now we have a lot of features planned for the Netlify CLI, including integrations with third parties. We're also looking into adding additional functionality from some of our other libraries into it, and some things to help you test and functions and all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really difficult to do that across two CLIs. And essentially when it comes down to it, we have more people wanting to use a Node version. And we also have more developers willing to work on a Node version.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's fair, and yeah, it's kind of a shame that there was ever kind of a bit of a forking that happened, and maybe at one point we might have been going to bet on Go versus JavaScript, what have you. And as you say, there's so much work that's being done on the CLI and this kind of tooling that sadly I just don't know how we'll be able to really support both. So it looks like I think that one will be put out to pasture. And as you mentioned, it's effectively built on top of all of our APIs, and people could build something if they wanted to. But I think our attention is going to be focused on the JavaScript, on the Node version.
Yeah. And if Norbert would like to start making some PRs and adding functionality, then we'd be happy to review them. It is open source, and the Open API is something that we maintain for both Go bindings and JavaScript bindings. So then that will continue to be updated as we update our API.
Fair enough. Okay, so I guess Norbert, the answer is it all depends on how much you really want it. But it certainly seems like the momentum is with the JavaScript version.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So this next one is about accessibility with our drag and drop deploys feature, and it comes from Leon Stafford. And what he said is, can we get a clickable file upload function where we can currently only drag and drop our zips for manual deploys? For someone rocking a minimal operating system, installing a file browser just to drag and drop a file into a browser hurts my soul. We don't want to hurt your soul, Leon. That makes me feel terrible.
We don't. Yeah, there's such responsibility that comes with this stuff. Sorry about the soul there, Leon. That's a really good question, and I must admit, I didn't completely appreciate the implications of that when I first read that. So I thought, well, this sounds like a convenience thing. But actually, this has been around for a while. So the interface that Leon's referring to is this ability to drag and drop folders or zip files onto Netlify. You can either go to Netlify drop, so netlify.com/drop, or at the bottom of the page where all of your sites are listed, there's a little kind of drop zone there, and it's the same thing. You can drag and drop assets onto that to create a new site. And Leon's asking, can we, rather than dragging and drop, can we hit a button that says, okay, now navigate my file structure and choose a file and upload it? At the moment, no, we don't support that. And we flagged this quite a long time ago. It was actually part of BitBalloon when, back in the days when you'd be using BitBalloon to do the drag and drop. It's effectively the same library that's handling that thing there. There are a few options that we've got for that, and we do really want to add that. But at the moment, it's a little bit of it gets a little bit less attention, and it has fewer users who are kind of impacted by that than some of the other things that we're working on. So while it is something we'd like to do, I think it's kind of falling a little bit down the list of priorities. But I do hear you, Leon, that actually that would be really nice to have, to be able to actually have a file navigator rather than having to do do anything else there. So I don't know. I'm sorry, this is another one of those. I don't know when, but we do have an issue tracking it.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure. At some point, hopefully, we'll get that out there. But there is a bit of a question of just prioritizing it.
Yeah, and I mean, just for convenience, especially if he's using a minimal operating system, then maybe using one of our CLIs would be even easier and faster than doing drag and drop.
Yeah, and I think that's what we kind of chatted about in the issue here on ask.netlify, and it does sound like Leon has some workarounds and he's not blocked per se by it. Mm-hmm. But nonetheless, I think he's right that it would be nice for the sake of accessibility to be able to have not be requiring people to drag things around. So
I agree.
There are certainly other ways you can do it, but considering this is our lowest barrier to entry, minimum viable deploy, maybe that's something we should try and give a bit more attention to. But it's fighting for space in the sprint to get in there, so we'll have to see as and when that comes up. But nonetheless, wanted just to mention that we see that, we hear you, Leon, and we think that's a good suggestion. So we'll continue to look at when that might find its way in at some point, but no promises as to when that might happen. I'm sorry to say. Okay. What is next? Okay, this is an interesting one, particularly in the light of so many of things that have been happening for redirects. I mean, there's the last few weeks, there's been all kinds of chatter from people building various versions of things like URL shorteners and those kind of things on top of the redirects API. Yeah. But this question from Tony Alves quite possibly kind of triggered by some of these things. In fact, some of the URLs that he's citing do have the word shortener in there, so it does sound like he's doing something similar. But he's asking, what's the order of precedence for redirects, because you can create redirects either in an _redirects file or in the netlify.toml. So which trumps which? What's the order of precedence there?
The _redirects file they're always added first, so they will be at the top.
They will be at the top. Okay, yes. So if you create routes for the redirects API in your TOML that conflict with the _redirects, they'll simply replace them?
No, all of them will be added, but when we process your redirects, the first one that matches is the one that will be used for that request.
The first one that matches?
Yes.
I see. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
So my head's in cascading style sheets. So I'm.
Yeah.
But there isn't. So we process them in the order of _redirects first, and then we hit the TOML, and the first match that we find is the one that we use.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's clear. That's, if I can understand it, then I'm sure Tony will understand it.
Yeah. And he asked if this is the way it's going to be, and the answer is yes, it's the way it's been, and yes, you can use it with that understanding. Okay, marvelous. Yeah, it's cool seeing what people are doing with that. And I've had some experiments myself, kind of making things like URL shorteners, but they're Kent C. Dodds has done some really good stuff to make that even faster. In fact, it's funny actually. About a year ago, you and I were both making URL shorteners. Yeah. And we took completely different routes to do it, but ultimately using the redirects API in Netlify. And it seems like there's another 4 or 5 approaches that people are building out the UI to do exactly the same thing, to update the redirects definitions in Netlify. Yeah, it's a really awesome use case for it. Since we do the redirects right there on the edge, it's super fast.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Do we got time for another couple?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
All right. So the next one is actually about our community, and it comes again from Tony Alves, where he says, "We've heard there's a new community manager at the company," and this is you, Perry, "but have not heard much lately. Can you guys tell us more about how this will look and what Netlify is building or plans to put together? I'm curious also if Netlify is going to reach out to us community members who spend some time helping others in the community for a first look."
Yeah, well, what a good question, and what a good opportunity as well to big up Perry. So as Tony mentioned in there, we've heard that there's a new community manager, and so Perry joined us. How long ago did Perry join us? Not long ago.
No, I believe it was October.
October, yeah, about
I think so, yeah.
probably shortly before the Jamstack Conf, which is in October. So
Yes,
it must have
yes.
been not
It was in
too.
the beginning of October, I believe.
Yeah, and yeah, they joined as our new community manager, and they're awesome.
Yeah.
And you're going to hear a lot more from Perry coming up soon. We actually were just talking to Perry recently, saying you've got to come on and talk about this yourself.
Yeah.
But Perry actually got hit by a car recently on Christmas Eve. Cycling, got hit by a car, and is currently recovering in hospital, and it's going to be fine, but nonetheless gave us all a bit of a scare. So we're all thinking of you, Perry. So hurry up and get well soon,
Yes,
because the
much love.
questions are stacking up. You know, you're being lazy in hospital when you should be back doing. No, but take as long as you need.
Yeah.
Just get well. So anyway, we're delighted that that Perry joined us as community manager, and I know there's lots of big things planned in terms of finding the right platform to run community on, and then also outreach to various parts of community, engaging in the community for lots of things to do with support. There's big stuff planned, right?
Yes, we've it's quite a bit of work, and Perry's put a ton of time into this over the last couple of months that they've been here, because we want to pick the best platform that will scale with us over the years.
Yeah,
because nothing would be worse than feeling like we hit a wall with the platform and we already have everyone on it, and then considering switching. So Perry's been doing a ton of research and testing and getting people's opinions from the team, and so that's a big thing, because we also want to do integrations between the platform and our existing platform and our help desk and everything. And so we just want to make sure it's good for our users, it's good for moderation, and it's extensible. So it's been a bit of work, and Perry's working on it. I wish I could say more, but that's Perry's thing, So
that's fair. Well, we'll get Perry on just as soon as they're kind of healthy and fit enough to get on here. And we'll talk more about that. But yeah, I think that's going to be a really important part of Netlify's development this coming year. We're really fortunate that people who use Netlify seem to really like it and are very engaged with it and very enthusiastic. But we also get lots of great feedback from the community. So finding the right way to hear all the voices is really, and that's a big part of Perry's background.
Yeah, and just I'd love to get everyone together and let them talk. I can't imagine. I'm so excited to think about the kinds of things that people will do, and they're going to start these amazing threads. Someone's going to make something cool, and someone else to say, get an idea from that, and it's pretty exciting for all of us. So.
Yeah. Okay, so there's more news to come on that, but yes, that's there are good things coming. Which actually kind of segues nicely into the last question we've got in here.
Yeah.
Should we try and mop that one up as well?
Yes. So this question actually comes from our very own Swix, who's one of our developer experience engineers. And Swix says, let's say I want to set up a meetup in my city. Do you have any recommended resources on how to do this? And what kind of content goes on in other meetups? Who can I invite as sponsors? And how do I get stickers and stuff from Netlify?
Fair enough. Well, that's a good kind of companion question to the last question about what's happening with community, because certainly this is not necessarily talking about the Netlify. I nearly said Netscape. Netscape. Yes. Wow, that's an unusual one. Netflix is a common slip, but Netscape.
Yeah, you're dating yourself with that one.
I am. I'm just trying to sound wise, but come off like an idiot. But yeah, the Netlify community and the Jamstack community aren't necessarily exactly the same thing, but of course there's a huge overlap. And at Netlify, we really wanted to try and help the Jamstack community grow and find a voice and all those kind of things. So although we don't own the Jamstack community and the Jamstack meetups, we've really tried to help support that. So if you do go to jamstack.org, you'll find that in there is a community section where it lists like the various different local meetups. A few of us at Netlify are involved in organizing some of those meetups. So for instance, I do the one in London, which is due another one early this year. And there's one happening in San Francisco. They're happening all over the place.
I'm co-organizing the New York one.
So. The New York one, which is that's probably one of the livelier ones. I think it's a bustling community there in New York.
Yeah. But, started by Bud Parr a few years ago, and it's just been blowing up. It's great. I love being part of that community.
It's really exciting to see, and I regularly get people asking about, can I start up a meetup in my own city? The answer is, of course, Yes, please go ahead and do so.
Yeah.
We want to try and give you some support in doing that.
Mhm.
So there are some resources available from us to help you in doing that. As Swix mentioned, we can get some swag to you. We can help hook you up with potential speakers and what have you.
Mhm.
But the best of these usually comes when it's your meetup. It's something that you own and operate and run, and it just so happens that it fits in with the Jamstack family. Now,
Mhm.
something that I've been talking quite a lot with Perry about is trying to make this more structured and more formal and more streamlined for someone saying, putting up their hand and saying, I'm starting a meetup in Manila. How do I get some support? So we're going to start to put together a pack of resources to help you with that.
Oh.
In the meantime, however, what you can do is, if you're interested in starting up a meetup of your own, if you email community@netlify.com, that'll find its way to the right person. Typically, it'll either be Perry or myself. But we'll be in touch, and we can help walk you through that. Help get you on the community site, help get you a logo, help get you some swag to hand out and those kind of things. But ultimately, we're really keen for people to own and operate these things themselves. So we can give you a bit of guidance, and we're going to try and make that slicker and slicker over the first quarter of this this coming year. But yeah, that's the way to do it. If you go to jamstack.org and take a look around on there, and if you want to email community@netlify.com, then we can start talking and help you out.
Yeah, and once our new community is up, you'll have a group of people that you can make announcements to, and for anyone wanting to start a meetup and looking for like-minded people to come join.
Absolutely. I still think it's worth giving a call out to the new Dynamic Slack as well, because I know that isn't a Jamstack Slack, but it's all part and parcel of the same thing. And there are lots of like-minded people on there having useful conversations. And people that you've mentioned, Gerald, are kind of in there and active, and one or two submitted questions.
Yeah, that was also started by Bud Parr, who started the Jamstack New York meetup.
Guy's a machine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an awesome community. I love the people there.
Yeah, super helpful.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know. It feels like we're probably starting to test people's patience now. Right? Maybe we should call it for one.
We made it through.
I think we got there.
We still haven't been stumped yet. People need to send us some harder questions.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we might get called out on the it's coming soon. But thankfully we haven't had anywhere where we've never heard of that thing. But yeah, we've obviously just selected the questions well.
Yes, and if anyone wants to share anything they're doing, anything unique that they're doing with Netlify, then we'd love to hear it.
Absolutely, yeah. Tweet things at us at Netlify. And if you've got questions, comments, anything else, support requests are still going to support. So this isn't the support channel. But certainly if you've got curiosities about Netlify and you've got more questions similar to what you've been hearing, ask.netlify.com is the place to go and submit those. We'll do our very best to answer them. And fingers crossed we'll have a nice full hopper ready for the next episode.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you very much to everyone who's written in. If you wrote a question and we did not get to it today, then we will still get to it. And feel free to bump us if you think we just are not addressing your concern. Otherwise, again, support@netlify.com. If you have any support related questions, you almost certainly will not get a timely response to anything in Ask Netlify, and it's also not a support channel. So I just want to make that clear so that if you actually need help, that you actually get that help.
I think we've done a good job on the disclaimer. I don't know. Again, it feels like we should have like a marquee.
Not a support channel. Just
Cool. All right. Nice stuff. Good talking to you, Gerald.
Yeah, definitely. You too, Phil.
Catch you before the next one, but until the next time, see you soon.
All right. Take care. Enjoy London.
Take it easy. Bye.
Bye.